Thank you very much indeed for coming in. So rather than the usual mantra of things fall apart, you see things coming together in Nigeria. What has proved to be the turning point so early in the game?
So I think the first thing is just the fact that this was a democratic transfer of power that went peacefully, if we think back to the previous election and the massive bloodshed that happened then, and the fact that many Nigerians, as well as foreigners, earlier this year were expecting, things to go very badly. The fact that there was a peaceful democratic transfer is a hugely positive signal before anything else happens.
But that's not due to Buhari. It's actually due to the previous government and its acceptance of it. So what do you attribute this, positivity that you see in Nigeria to?
So fundamentally, what we looked at was this incredible growing middle class in Nigeria, and that's come out of a decade of good growth, and clearly some of the credit for that goes to the previous government. But we're talking about sort of middle class people who are looking to really sort of seek their fortune through starting businesses. That's a huge change from the old days where sort of ambitious, bright young Nigerians would try and get government jobs. The second thing is that these young people are sort of committed Democrats, actually. One of the reasons that we saw this incredible election result was because so many people said we're not going to stand for a dodgy election. We saw people going out and monitoring the vote, all volunteers. We saw the impact of technology, people taking photos of the count at local voting stations and sending those into counts. So we really did see this very positive middle-class effect coming through in Nigeria.
And Jonathan, one of the statements I read in your article was that Nigeria could be the engine room of Africa. So how much do you think rests within the Buhari government to drive growth, and not just necessarily for Nigeria, but for the whole continent?
Well, so, I suppose this really, policy does matter. And I know we're giving Nigeria a lot of credit and Mr. Buhari a lot of credit before he's done anything. Frankly, good policies matter. We reckon that Nigeria could be growing a good 4 percentage points faster a year. That economy has just got immense potential if the government gets basic things right. We're talking about power, electricity, getting gas flowing again, basic policy things. If that happens, and we're talking about this massive economy, this massive population growing at 10% a year, we really do see that lifting the entire region.
Is there a sense of a classic paradoxical irony here that is so typical of Nigeria, that the man who's expected to lead the country into a more hopeful democratic future is the same man who trampled on the democratic rights of many Nigerians as a military dictator?
Well, absolutely. We're very concerned by his record, jailing people. We all know what happened in the past. Hopefully he has shown himself to be a committed Democrat by standing for election, losing it in the past, accepting the results. But frankly, I think he needs to be watched closely. And when we come back to this sort of Nigerian middle class and civil society, actually a lot of the burden will be on them to ensure that he is bringing clean governance and is sort of staying on target.
How much has the north of the country been neglected in the past? Do you think that, I guess you could say, developing infrastructure within the north would lead to better growth in the economy of Nigeria, and also tackling security in the region, because that's where the Boko Haram stronghold is?
Well, exactly. So we've seen these advances against Boko Haram in the past few months. But what they've left behind is a devastated, devastated country. If, those top 3 northeastern provinces are there's not very much left. 1.5 million refugees. So there's this huge legacy that has to be overcome, just in terms of the legacy of the insurgency. But more generally, this is a part of the world that has been, chronically underdeveloped for years and left behind for years.
Just look into your crystal ball for us and into the future. One of the big issues in Africa right now is the very limited amount of trade between African countries. I think it's just about 12%, which is just shockingly low. Do you think that people like President Buhari, sitting as the president of the largest economy in Africa, are actually cognizant of that and the need to do something about it to improve their own economy as well as that of its trading partners?
So if one looks across the continent as a whole, so we're not just talking Nigeria, clearly everyone talks about increasing intra-African trade. Whether they really believe it enough to make it a priority is something that I'm quite doubtful of. If one looks at the East African bloc, where there is a lot more trade, one still sees that it can take days to get a container, from a port in, Mombasa across to Kigali. And a lot of those delays are not because, the roads are particularly dilapidated. It's because you have roadblocks with policemen stopping lorries. I mean, it doesn't take much political will to have, a head of state on and put a stop to it.